So we will call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 5:02 PM on March 3rd, 2025.
And we'll call the select board meeting to order at the same time, same date.
All right. Minutes?
I move that I sent them out. Everybody got them. Okay. I move that we accept the minutes. I move that we accept the minutes of the February 24th meeting. Thank you. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Against? Abstaining. That passes 5-0-1. Okay. I also, one note from last week's meeting, I emailed out to everybody. We went back with the library and recalculated the energy costs, and it came pretty close to the estimate that you came up with, Mark. So from my perspective, there's nothing that needs to be done unless somebody else feels the need to talk about it anymore. No, we just went back and looked at the demand charges, and it came out fairly close to the 33,000 that we estimated. So we'll leave that be. Okay, with that, we're ready for SCEMS.
Well, good evening, everybody. Joshua Sparks, Chief of South County EMS. So this year, I'm actually requesting a 6.61% decrease from last fiscal year for a total amount of $414,995,000 from the town of Deerfield. That's a $29,000 decrease. The reason for this, like every department in the town, we've seen some substantial increases with many of our line item costs, mostly involving personnel, insurance, retirement, and such. But we've had a good year, and we've had a year to really reduce many of the operational costs. So if anybody has any specific questions about anything we're doing in here, I'm happy to answer them, but I'm very pleased to be asking for less this year than last year.
Let's start with a motion. If anybody would like to make a motion for SCEMS?
I move to recommend that the sum of $414,995 for Deerfield's contribution to the SCEMS budget.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll make the same motion for the select board.
Second.
So can you refresh us? Last year you bought a vehicle and the goal was to be able to respond more often. I don't have the terminology down properly. Can you give us an update on that and how that's worked out and how much increased business you've been able to have and everything?
For sure. So the vehicle we purchased was, it served a couple of purposes. The first was to replace the aging admin car that had been donated to us by Deerfield Police some years prior. And so definitely a success. That vehicle is still being built out because we're trying to do this the most cost-effective way. That vehicle was one part of a overall strategy to try and capture revenue by seeking mutual aid and intercept calls. We've been able to do that not at the expense of losing our primary response area calls. So that's, in that sense, it's been a great success. But there still remains work to be done. That's a work in progress, that vehicle.
So I'm just recapping to make sure I understand what you said.
Mm-hmm.
So the vehicle's still being built out, so you don't have the new vehicle yet, but you've been able to use the vehicles that you have to increase your response rate. while
Yes and
still
no.
maintaining services to people in Deerfield and Sunderland.
Right, so we do have the vehicle.
Oh, you do? Okay.
It's mostly built out. There's a few final touches to add.
Okay.
Right now, it just comes down to staffing it, and we've made some schedule changes, which hopefully will put us in a better position. The vehicle, in addition to some final work on it, it still needs to be licensed to do that kind of work. So we have the car. It's great. We
Just
can,
doing the admin stuff.
we can
then.
drive it around as an admin vehicle. And we can put people on scene with it. It's certainly gone on some calls, but as for its intended purposes, it's a work in progress.
One other thing, Joshua, that you're still waiting for it to be decaled or whatever, detailed. So it says South County EMS and all of that on the outside. So right now it's a black Mustang primarily.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a wonderful undercover vehicle, which is not the goal, right? So it does need to be decaled. It needs some mounting done inside of it. It needs a little bit more work done with the radio inside. So it's getting there.
Josh, what license are you going for with that? Is there a class or
Yeah, Class 5.
class 5?
So what Blake is asking about is Department of Public Health has different ways to classify ambulances, and a Class 5 ambulance is a non-transport ambulance. So this is different from a first responder vehicle in licensing and in capability.
Still like, taking in your
Well,
budget year in front of us.
Mhm.
So it looks like insurance went up a lot, electricity. How are your revenues compared to last year?
Well, it's a work in progress. I mean, we're still in the third quarter, but so far we are on track to meet the expected 800,000. We've billed out over $1 million. So how much of that we'll actually see, time will tell. But we're on track to hit our target.
But am I reading this right? You reduced your expectation for 26 to 750?
Well, so there's a lot of uncertainty about medical billing right now. So we don't know what it's going to look like, is the short answer. There's a lot of discussion about reduced federal payments involving, we don't know what. It could include Medicare. It could include Medicaid, likely to include Medicaid. We don't know. There's been no guidance. There's been no direction. There's been a lot of discussion, and that's not very helpful. So anticipating we could see some reduction, we don't know how much, we don't know when, and we don't know if. Medicaid counts for about 10% of our earned revenues from ambulance receipts. So we adjusted it by roughly that much, anticipating we annually see about a 3% increase in calls. So it is reduced from the previous year, and I hope ultimately that none of that comes to pass, and we'll see.
Is that the only place that uncertainty on the federal level you expect to impact you, or do you have other sources of funding that are federally derived?
Sure. So on a very small level, there's some question about grant awards. We've never really relied on grant funding for our operation. It's been used a couple of times in the most recent years to help supplement the operation. But when you look at the totality of not just our department, but emergency medical services throughout the country, our numbers are pretty on par with everybody's. And roughly 45% of our earned revenues from ambulance receipts come from federal payers. So depending on what happens, this will either prove to be downright catastrophic, or we don't know. Right now, the discussion, like I said, is just that. There hasn't been any real guidance. There's been no mention of anything that's to come. The best that we can hope to do is expect that there's going to be some reduction. I'm expecting, or playing a worst case scenario, that I won't see any Medicaid reimbursement. I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, this budget prepares for that. If Medicare is affected, then we'll need to have another meeting.
Your benefits went way up.
Certainly.
What happened there?
That is every department has seen this. The health insurance is charging a lot more.
This seems higher than some of the other ones that I've seen.
I do have the numbers on
Imagine
that.
this- Yeah. Yeah, maybe.
I would say that what was budgeted for FY '25 isn't going to cover what medical insurance is for the,
Is it? Okay.
for SCEMS.
Okay.
EMS employees tend to take advantage of our health insurance, and even more so this year, I think every single one of your full-timers possibly.
Yeah, so these are just the group insurance to the town numbers. Our portion of it is that $148,525. It is a large increase. The insurance companies are telling us that this is due to weight loss drugs,
Yeah.
is what they're saying, which I'll leave that alone. But this is the cost that we have to pay.
Your liability insurance went way up too.
Yeah, insurance across the board. Retirement also went up a fair amount. By about a little less than 10,000, but still an increase.
Any other questions or discussion? Go ahead, John.
I have two. I see that medical equipment repairs and maintenance is way down. Can you
Yes.
talk about that? I mean, it's
Yes.
good. Glad.
Yeah, definitely. So one of our major vendors for medical equipment, we purchase our ambulance stretchers, some of our extrication devices, like the stair chair, things like that, and our cardiac monitors. Cardiac monitors are very expensive machines that we use regularly, and we use them for a variety of things. They're all provided by the same manufacturer, Stryker. They offer different scales of maintenance and repair. Because all of our devices are essentially new and fall under their warranty period, there's no sense in us paying the extra money for things that they're already covered for. So at least for this year, we're able to budget far less for those devices. Next year, I will need to budget slightly more to replace some of the batteries. But really, we won't have to go back to the expensive plan for another couple of years now. So I'm very happy with that.
So basically, it's because you have new equipment.
Yeah, it's great.
The other question I have is most of the decrease is because of an increase in the use of retained earnings.
Yeah.
In the past, like, if I recall, retained earnings was used to fund the ambulance purchases.
Well, that's
How
been.
do things sit in that respect?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's forefront on my mind is ambulance replacement. We purchased another vehicle, almost 2 years ago that hopefully we should see by spring of next year, and that's our ambulance replacement. That's typical that it's on a 36-month delivery. So if you look at retained earnings, over the years, it's actually come down. I mean, at one point it was over $300,000, $292,000. So it's kind of it's changed according to the year. Where we're left with at the end of this is we do need to plan ahead for yet another vehicle replacement, especially considering that it takes 3 years from the purchase date to where we actually see it. So I think when all is said and done, we should be looking at, I think it was $145,000 left over that we can use for a couple of different projects. I would like all of that to go into a capital fund so that we can plan ahead. There was a idea with the Board of Oversight previous to my coming in that every year we would add $50,000 to a fund that would go towards the ambulance replacement and put it on a 5-year schedule. That has not happened. So there you go. We can't. So
because this is an enterprise fund, you can't set aside money into a reserve for an ambulance. So you just have to manually remember, this is how much we have in our retained earnings that is going to be used towards an ambulance. You can't, there's nothing else you could do. The ambulance that we appropriated for last year, is that money is sitting in the capital projects fund, both from retained earnings, from the town of Deerfield, free cash, from Sunderland, from Whately. It's all sitting there. We paid for the chassis. So just waiting for it to show up. But until you appropriate money for any equipment in an enterprise fund, you can't take the money out of retained earnings. Sorry. With that said, the reason there was only 80,000 used last year was because we'd used 150,000 towards cardiac monitors, and we'd used 100,000 towards the ambulance from retained earnings. So there wasn't a whole lot of retained earnings to use towards the budget. This year is more of a normal year compared to that.
But are we kind of in the back of our minds, keeping money, setting
There-
aside,
there's-
save for an ambulance?
There's 145,000 left on the table in retained earnings sitting there that can be applied towards the ambulance or whatever equipment the EMS want to put their money into.
Thank you.
Can you remind us how much the ambulance you just bought cost?
It was appropriated at 375,000.
Okay. And how often do you need to buy a new ambulance?
realistically, I'd like to see them every 5 to 6 years being replaced.
The way
Josh,
prices
And
are
that's,
going,
that's
100,000.
asking a lot of an ambulance.
do you know what it costs now to replace one of those ambulances as opposed to what you just set the money aside for?
Yeah, I have not gotten a quote. This is something we need to discuss at upcoming Boo meeting, to discuss some of our options, whether we're going to do another custom order, if we're going to do available now order, we could look at remount options. So we have a lot of choices. But
I
I
just know
don't,
that the cost is going up every year on you.
I don't expect it's going to go down.
Brenda, I just want to check one thing that, if I understood you to say, we set aside money for the truck portion, but not the box portion. Or is all the money set aside?
No, it's all set aside.
Thank you.
We appropriated 375,000. We asked for money from all three towns and we used money from retained earnings.
Mhm.
So that's all sitting in a capital project
Right,
fund
so
waiting. Yep.
we can take money from the towns and put it into a special fund, but we can't use the enterprise that same way, is that right? Or the retained earnings?
When you appropriate.
Yeah.
That's when you can set the money aside.
Right.
Yep.
I just wanted to clarify that for myself and for anybody who was wondering, is that, you know, that ambulance in theory is paid for.
Make a comment, sort of a question, sort of a comment. Obviously, you've got an oversight board that looks at what you're doing all the time. And so it's more of sort of their purview to keep track of your finances, but just sort of nomenclature wise here. Obviously, you're saying that you have a reduced budget here, but it's really not, it's reduced only in the sense of what you're asking from the town. Right?
That is correct.
So we just need to, okay. And because we keep using that word reduce. And so if we look at it as what your budget is increasing overall, if, I don't have my glasses, which is very embarrassing. So I'm not sure if I read these numbers right, but to me, it sounds like you have about a 3.3% increase in your budget, if I saw the numbers correctly, which I'm just throwing that out there because it seems like we think about our budgets and finance committee in that way.
Mhm.
And so if that, I'm just putting that out there, if that's what I think it looks like roughly, and it seems like that's sort of a, you know,
I think,
going on a ballpark kind of place.
yeah, Brenda's got the calculator out to get a better number, but it certainly is an increase. The things that we've seen increase the most are going to be personnel costs. We're going to see,
Which is something
so it's, yeah, it's a 3% increase. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, thank you. Personnel costs, we have step raises, we have COLA raises, we have health insurance increases, we have retirement increases. Everything across the board for personnel is costing us more. The flip side to that is that we've had the anticipated earnings that we thought we would get are happening. And we've been able to offset that through the reduction of operational costs. So that's led us to a place with the use of retained earnings that we can ask for a lesser tax assessment from the three towns. But yes, the overall cost of the operation has gone up and it will continue to go up.
Hopefully the earnings continue to go up too.
Well, that's been a big part of why we're focusing so much on trying to find other revenue sources. CPE is a program run by the state, administered through an agency that attempts to pay the gap in billed versus paid Medicaid reimbursements. So for example, the very short answer here is if I bill $500 and Medicaid pays us $300, they're going to attempt to pay some of that difference. There's a lot of speculation about whether it will be around next year. But this year, it's on the way. We should see that in July.
Can you explain briefly, I think we got more money in the previous budget than this budget. Can you explain why that occurred? CPE, didn't it go from 45 to 40 something?
Yeah, for sure. The easiest way is that we saw fewer Medicaid transports.
Josh, your utilities have gone up quite a bit in the last few years from 3,700 to 11,000. Is that just the propane or is the electric, is all three of them?
Well, electrical is a big increase, for sure. Turn on the news and you'll see about that. It's a big deal these days. Propane, I'm anticipating will increase. Propane typically follows the price of crude oil. So I'm expecting there to be an increase. We've received no notification about rate increases, but I think it's prudent to budget for them because that's what always happens. We have been able to reduce some of the communications and technology fees to try and offset that.
You also have one here on software.
Yes, software is a large increase.
Yeah.
In the past, we've been using a electronic medical records vendor that has been very affordable. We have owned that license, but it is an anachronistic program, and we've had some issues with it actually billing out appropriately. So we did transition to a new electronic medical records vendor in July of this year, and that's been very successful. It's a much more contemporary system that's web-based. You get what you pay for.
Back to the electricity charges for a second. The new vehicle is electric, right?
Correct.
So that additional usage is figured in?
It is. The plus side is we're able to decrease fuel.
Is it a wash, like dollar wise or?
Tough to know. We haven't had it long enough to really trend what it'll look like. But dollar for dollar, I expect it will cost less than internal combustion.
Generally speaking, I think that EV versus gas generally is like a $2 difference in mileage. So EV is much cheaper to fuel and run than gas.
Thank you. Any? It has been moved and seconded for SCEM's Enterprise Fund for a Deerfield contribution of $414,995. Any further discussion? All those in favor? That's unanimous, 700.
And I'll make a motion to approve $414,995 for the SCEMS Enterprise Fund Deerfield contribution.
Second.
Any further discussion on the select board? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
yours.
the job you did.
We all hope we don't have to see you in the next years in a professional capacity. All right, so we have time to do whatever you want. You have miscellaneous budgets that you want us to go through?
Do you want to just go down the line for the ones that we haven't done yet and just?
Okay.
So I think the next one that hadn't been voted was the accountant expense. And that's 135-5420
5,400?
or 5,400, yeah.
Say that again for the first part.
135-5400.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend $22,950 for accountant expense, account number 135-5400.
Do we have a second?
Second.
I'll make that motion for the select board.
Second.
Discussion?
All right, so I had a visit with Tom Scanlon, who has increased his fee a little bit. But part of the reason that the entire 22,000 is in this budget instead of part of it going to the wastewater treatment plant is there's an additional fee to do a single audit that's required anytime you're accepting more than 750,000 in federal money. And the need for the single audit for the wastewater treatment plant no longer exists, because that's done. So the only reason we're going to need a single audit this coming fiscal year is because of the Leary lot. That's a general expenditure of the town. So it's all sitting in this budget. I think that's really the only change.
So if we don't, I'm just trying to understand what you said. So if we, like, if next year we haven't accepted any, some year, we haven't accepted any federal funds, does that, this whole 22,000 go away or?
No, just the single audit. The single audit fee is 2,500.
Oh,
And
okay.
I had been charging a portion of that to the wastewater treatment plant
Got it.
because the main reason we had it before was because of the USDA money.
Brenda, will this be coming up with the other projects that we're doing? We'll have to do audits with those as well, like the library?
Just for any federal dollars received in excess of 750,000. And, you know, there are a lot of school funds that are federally funded, not enough to warrant a single audit. So the only thing I could think of for fiscal 25 was the Leary lot. And hopefully beyond that, we won't need one.
1888.
What's that?
1888.
True. Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Tom has indicated that the requirements are getting very onerous with the single audit. And so starting in fiscal 25, it'll be a larger portion of his time spent on that.
So does the single audit take place after the project's been completed and the federal money has been expended, or does it like happen over, like if the federal money is split over 2 fiscal years, does it happen twice?
Yes.
Thank you.
I think this is a good problem to have. And also, Mr. Scanlon is worth every penny, in my opinion. So I hate to see these things go up, but you know, he's a very good accountant. So yeah, I think it is what it is, I guess.
He indicated that there's been a merger of several accounting firms, and the accounting firm that has moved forward has like doubled their fees to 50,000 for many communities. So, yeah.
Department of Efficiency.
Let's keep them.
Any further discussion? Nope. All those in favor? It's unanimous, 700.
Any further discussion on the select board? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
All right, the next budget I have open is 152-5400, which is the personnel board.
141, 5110, did we do that one?
What's that?
141, 5110, have we done that one? Assessor's admin assistant salary,
Yes, we did do
did?
that one.
right on my piece of paper. Oh, there's a replacement.
Oh, okay,
I didn't take the old one out. Okay.
got it. Yes, because we had revoted that budget, so I printed out new.
That's what it was.
yes.
Yeah. Thank you. 152, 5400.
Right, personnel board.
like to make a motion to recommend $500 for the Personnel Board, account number 152-5400.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? All right, it's unanimous, 700.
I'll make a motion to approve the sum of $500 for the Personnel Board account 152-5400.
Second,
Any further discussion on the Select Board? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
All right, so let's move on to PEG Access Capital, which is 155-5800.
Like to recommend the sum of $4,000 for PEG Access Capital, account number 155-5800.
Second.
Make the same motion for the Select Board.
Second,
All right, so this fee is set by the contract. This is for FCAT's use, and they have used some of it already this year. They've spent a little less than 10,000 here about a month ago for some kind of equipment here that's supposed to make our meetings better.
Yeah, I think purchasing automatic video equipment to take meeting video.
Got it, yeah. And then he spent a little bit more, so that was good. It's good to see him finally using it.
Yeah. Yes.
Just one quick question. This contract, is this the contract with FCAT or is it the Comcast license agreement?
Comcast.
So has that been negotiated and agreed upon? Is it?
It,
is this-
it is up for renegotiation, I think, this coming fall, right, Christopher?
You're in the process.
Yeah, correct. So that agreement will run out in November of 2025. And I believe our Tri-Town Cable Advisory Committee is already engaging with Comcast to renegotiate it.
Yeah, so the 4,000 that's in this budget is the 4,000 we actually received in November of this fiscal year. So it's already received, so it goes into the next fiscal year budget.
I'm confused. Comparing this to the financial statement.
Yes, there's a carryover because they haven't used it.
But I'm looking at last year, there was a carryover 55,000. We appropriated 21,000. We've only spent 14,000.
That's a combination of two different accounts, I think, that you're looking at there. I don't have it in front of me, but there's an IT hardware account, and then there's the PEG Access Capital account that might be combined together in your financial statements. Yeah, it's very possible, but that money carries over until they use it.
This is all basically cannot be used for anything else anyway.
Correct.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I guess if we appropriated 21,000 last year,
No, what you're looking at is, I believe, is the server that we purchased on July 1st.
so it's a capital item.
It would have been 17,000 that we had set aside for the server, so that makes sense that it's 21,000 because 4,000 of it is for this.
You good with that?
Hmm?
You good with that?
Oh, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Any other questions or discussion? No, all those in favor? That's unanimous, 700.
Any discussion from the Select Board? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
So let's go to the Conservation Commission at 171-5400.
Like to make a motion to recommend the sum of $2,000 for Conservation Commission account number 171-5400.
Second.
Make that same motion for the select board.
Second.
All right, so the amount appropriated here is really covers postage, it covers their annual dues, any meetings that they decide to attend, so on and so forth.
This would cover the cost of Conservation Commission hearings as well. What about legal ads? Is that from a different account?
Usually that comes out of the town office expense account.
Okay.
Unless we're running low on funds there, then they might make the Conservation Commission take it if they have money.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous, 700.
Any further discussion on the select board?
Yes. Just one item on this thing. We were out with the chairman of the Conservation Commission, and sounds like he's putting a lot of time in or nothing. And I think that's something that needs to be addressed in the future, for the amount of time he's putting in.
I think he's been working with Christopher with the idea that maybe we'd consider somewhere down the road a conservation agent, right?
Yeah, that's correct. And Pete has submitted a draft kind of job description for a conservation agent position. We're talking to other towns that have the position currently. I think it's unlikely to materialize, in time for this budget. They do have fees associated with the Wetlands Protection Act that they could potentially use, at least in the short term, to sort of pilot a position. And this is something I think the latest Pete had mentioned was something like 8 to 10 hours a week. So pretty minor, but obviously it would have to be built into an FY26 budget. So, we'll see where that conversation leads, but that's the latest.
Okay, well, yeah, I was just gonna add that, Pete in particular is impacted by this because he gives advice to the emergency management director about whether there's, an emergency order that has to be put in place to handle flooding or handle erosion, and then there's all the work tied in with just the week-to-week operation of like the dog kennel proposal. They have to go out and inspect the land, find out if there are, all the Wetlands Protection Act regulations are covered and so forth. So anyway, all those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
All right, Open Space Committee, 172-5400.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the sum of $250 for Open Space Committee account number 172-5400.
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
Really, the only time we've spent any money for the Open Space Committee was when we did the open rec plan, the new recreation plan. So, and that was back in 2022-23. But this keeps it on the books in case there's something that comes up.
Any discussion? No. All those in favor? Unanimous?
Any select board discussion? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
All right, let's do Planning Board, 175-5400.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the sum of $2,000 for the Planning Board account number 175-5400.
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
We don't always spend the $2,000, but it's there for whatever they might need it for, including any dues or meetings. I know Denise was intending to go to MMA this year and was not able to attend, but the money would have come from this budget for her participation.
Postings for hearings and stuff comes out of a different,
Usually the hearings come out of the publishing costs in the town office expense account.
any discussion? No? Any comments on the amount of hours that the planning board puts in versus the,
No,
I actually do have a comment. I think that they all put in a really good job and they put in a lot of time for it. So yes, I do think they need a kudos.
all right, any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous.
any select board discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilton, aye.
All right, 176-5400, which is ZBA.
To make a motion.
I'll move to recommend the sum of $1,000 for zoning board of appeals account number 176-5400.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Same motion for the select board.
Second.
So this account really is used almost exclusively for postage, so it just depends on how busy of a year they're having. Seems like half the time we have to do a reserve fund or an appropriation transfer request, and half the time we don't. They don't have access to a revolving fund like the planning board or the wetlands or anything like that to be able to shove that into a different fund instead of the general fund, so.
Any discussion? No, all those in favor? Wait.
I'm going to abstain. I'm on the zoning board, so
Got it.
yeah.
So that's a 6-0-1 passes.
Any discussion on the select board?
No.
All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilton, aye.
Blake, I'm insulted.
ZBA works hard too.
Thank you.
Well, it was passed in.
We definitely don't work as hard as those other two.
But you have more fun.
All right, Ag Commission, 179-5400.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the sum of $100 for the Agricultural Commission, account number 179-5400.
Second.
Same motion for the select board.
Second.
I would say the Ag Commission does not work hard.
Except in their fields.
They work hard, just not at towns. Any discussion? No, all those in favor? That's unanimous.
So this is basically a placeholder to anticipate when they start to do some work in the future.
Yes.
Okay. All those, any further discussion on the select board?
Yeah, I think the zoning board does do a good job too.
All right. All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilton, aye.
All right, 182-5400 is the Energy Committee.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the sum of $1,000 for the Energy Committee, account number 182-5400.
Second.
I'll make the same motion for the select board. Sorry, I'm slacking.
Second.
I don't know what to say about this account. Sometimes the money gets used and sometimes it doesn't. I think they have intentions to use it, but sometimes the projects don't happen the way they want them to.
That, for a quick reminder of what this is? What
It's for the Energy Committee.
Are they looking, is it a group focused on energy efficiency improvements in town
Right.
buildings or?
You know, they, I think one year did a flyer that they sent out to residents in regards to the aggregation, electric aggregation help me out
Oh,
here.
the
You-
municipal energy aggregation.
That's it.
So yeah, they sometimes have expenses related to writing grants. They also help the town work with Eversource, I believe it was Eversource, to change all the lights from incandescent to LED within the last 2 or 3 years, which had a great energy savings. So, and they work with, again, I don't know where they spend their money because it's infrequently that they do it, but yeah.
I think a lot of it is volunteer work too.
It
So
is,
they've
yeah.
reached out like to UMass and gotten some, they did a solar study and
Right.
so they do a bunch of, but it's all energy related and energy efficiency and alternative, whatever, renewables and all that kind of stuff. But almost everything they do is volunteer work.
Thanks.
My only question is whether $1,000 is needed as a placeholder here, given their expenditure history.
I think that over the past, in the last couple of months, we've seen something where they put out some publications and things like that. So I think some of that money does get expended for them trying to educate the town on some of the things that they're trying to do.
Brenda, do you have any indication that they've, any plans to expend money from the allocation from the previous fiscal year yet?
They did not spend it from the previous fiscal year, so
Okay.
it went back into free cash. Yeah, and in the current year, I don't think there's anything been spent yet.
Do we know how much it costs to send someone to MMA? Like, do they ever use this for sending someone to MMA?
They've never sent anyone. They would need more than 1,000, more than likely.
Might be highly unusual for an energy committee member to attend the MMA unless they're speaking on a panel.
Mhm. And also if there was some specific request from the town to send them for some reason because there was something special happening in specific to energy, but they're more general speak most of the time, the MMA.
Well, I asked because, you know, we have increased other budgets and I was wondering if there's any potential, even small amount, any potential savings here since there's inactivity over the last several years.
Would you like to make a motion to?
I will move to amend the FY '26 budget amount to $500.
We have a second.
Second.
For discussion, I'll make that same motion for the select board.
Second.
So if they were to do a mailing to the whole town, do you have any idea about how much that costs, like a single mailing? No.
I don't. The 1 year we spent $1,849. I want to say that included, that was the year that they did the mailing, but I can't remember for sure.
Buy some trees or something?
They did in 2024, they bought, yep, they bought some trees.
Feel guilty if any of my comments started to question the budget. I just was curious what they did. So I have no problem with $1,000. I wouldn't want them to, if they suddenly had to spend more than 500 to create more of a hassle to get, you know, $575 spent this year. So given the amount, I'm fine with that.
The question I have is if they don't spend it, it goes back into the
Oh,
general fund
oh, it's
anyways. So I don't see any reason why we need to reduce it.
Withdraw my motion, I can do that. Let it sit, see what happens next year.
We can vote. We can vote on it. Any other discussion on the motion to change it from 1,000 to 500?
We're not spending it. Why not? Because while it does go to free cash, it's also, has to be paid for. Well,
But nobody's here to speak on like where,
From
if,
the
what
energy
they might
committee,
have a
yeah.
plan. I don't know.
There's nothing in the
I-
explanation.
That'll teach them.
It is blank.
Yeah.
I would
So, go ahead.
still in discussion phase? Yeah, I would just, again, reiterate an opposition to the motion, just because we've just gone through a handful of these and haven't really questioned them. And so it does seem a little unfair to do it now. And again, it's like, this is, this is not where the town is spending a lot of money in terms of finding budget savings. There are other places to look that would be more fruitful, I think.
Y'all have any comments or thoughts?
No, I'll be guided by you guys. Yeah. I don't see an overriding need to lower it. I don't know if it's just me or I don't feel as frantic about the budget as I have in some past cycles where we were looking for every nickel. And if it goes back to free cash, yeah, maybe that's a problem that we need to address on free cash side, so I'll do whatever Finance Committee thinks is prudent.
We spend all this time on $500.
Exactly.
Exactly.
We look at a Skims budget over $1 million and
Yeah.
there's no discussion,
Exactly.
barely no discussion at all.
1.7.
All right.
I wonder where our priorities are.
All right. Any further discussion on the
Amendment.
motion before you? So right now, we're going to vote only on changing 1,000 to 500. This does not approve the budget, it just changed the value. So all of in favor of the motion as proposed? The amendment is proposed? All opposed? That's everybody, right? So that does not carry 5-0.
And I'll withdraw the select board's motion on this.
Okay. So we now have before us a motion for the Energy Committee at $1,000. Any further discussion? All those in favor? It's unanimous, 7-0-0.
Any further discussion on the select board? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye. Don't mean to sound wishy-washy.
Yeah. Can somebody remind me, what time does the planning board start tonight?
7.
7.
Okay.
And she
So
had
we
asked,
Go till 6:15, maybe 6:30 and.
yeah,
and
she said
be okay.
6:30, 6:45 at the latest.
Okay, so we'll aim to
I think what
finish
Amy
by
said.
6:30.
Yeah.
Do you all have, are you here for public comment or are you just enjoying the finance committee? Okay, so I don't have to save time for public comment at the end, right? Okay. What's next?
We're gonna skip over the inspections department payroll because that budget is maybe a little in flux. There's been a request to have a regrading, for one of the employees, with the personnel board. So I'm just gonna wait till that decision's been made, but let's go to, inspections department expense at 241-5400.
Do you have a motion?
I'll move to recommend the sum of $4,950 for Inspections Department expense account number 241-5400.
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
Any discussion?
Bob had no reason to make any changes to this budget. He felt like that was sufficient.
Ready. Discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Any discussion on the select board? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
Should we skip over the schools
Yeah.
for right now? Okay. So there were some highway budgets that didn't get approved. Let's do winter snow and ice at 423-5400.
Just one quick comment about schools, just a reminder, tomorrow night is the Frontier public hearing. Wednesday night is the Deerfield Elementary public hearing. They're both at 6 PM in their respective libraries, I believe. Or media center, or whatever you call the high school one.
Can I ask a question too, Brenda? About the budgets that we've looked at them preliminarily, or am I just remembering that I've looked at them?
The schools,
You
Yeah.
put in some placeholder increase in salaries in each of the, I mean, they included those
For the highway department and,
for the schools, I mean,
oh,
for all
they,
budgets.
they have given me numbers to use for
Okay.
this, for the school budgets.
Okay,
So
thank
I
you.
went with what Shelley sent me last week.
Yeah, it reflects some unknown increase. I mean, some increase, but
Right.
potentially we don't have those answers yet.
It was a flat 3% increase for Deerfield Elementary School, and then Frontier Regional, I think, was 4.51%,
Right.
which covered two different accounts, their appropriation and their transportation.
Thank you.
So winter snow and ice, 423-5400.
Make a motion to approve winter snow and ice removal, account 423-5400 for $100,000.
do we have a second?
Make that motion for the select board.
Second.
Discussion?
Is this,
Oh, go
Oh.
ahead.
oh, sorry, you should go first.
Oh, I was going to say, it just seemed time to increase that budget, even though it's only $5,000. But we'll never do snow and ice for $100,000 anymore. So brought it up.
Is this the budget that we can't go down on?
Correct.
Like, I kind of think that this year could potentially be like a fluke with the amount of salt we're putting down. Like, I would almost rather just do, what do we typically do? Like a reserve fund transfer or something if we bust on this budget?
It could be a reserve fund transfer. It could be free cash. This year I was going to use free cash just because I think it's going to be a hefty amount.
Yeah.
But you'll see, in 2020, we spent 107,000. 21, we spent 120. 22, we spent 147. In 23, we spent almost 200,000. And in 24, we spent 125,000, but that was only because that's the amount of money we moved into there. And then they found an invoice that they hadn't gotten, and it ended up having to be charged against the highway department because we didn't have any money left in here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, like I don't think the planet's cooling off. So even though we're spending more, I wonder when, we're going to have years where there's going to be very little salt. Like if that's going to be next year, if it's going to be in 5 years, I don't know what everyone else thinks, but I would hate to have the floor raised on this and then us not be able to go in the other direction very easily.
right.
But can you just explain, I'm sorry to interrupt, can you just explain, what did you mean when you said you can't go down on this budget?
You can't reduce the budget.
Who said, what does that mean?
That's a state requirement. If the state allows us to overspend this account,
It does, right?
but they only allow you to overspend the account as long as you continue to either keep it the same or increase it. You can never decrease it. If you decrease it, you've lost that opportunity.
Lost the opportunity to overspend.
Correct.
Such a strange concept, I guess I'm
It,
why.
it is.
I mean, it's such an odd thing, because, I mean, for budget reasons or finance reasons, I mean, it's so odd that we always overspend it, but we never change it. Like, we don't reflect reality.
Well, we are changing it. You just don't want to put too much in and
Because
have
that
one of
actually-
those years where you're not going to spend the money. Now,
I mean,
If-
we're
if-
like a few average degrees off from never having to salt again.
Yeah.
That's where I'm coming from on this. Like,
Except that, as she was just saying, we've had to spend more than we budget every year, so
Yeah.
Never
where
had-
is all that no salt coming from?
We're already over budget this year, correct?
yes. Oh, yes.
Why do you-
What happens if you don't use it? Like, what happens if we only have to use?
Money goes into free cash.
So then what's the,
What's the downside? Yeah, I mean, is there some, say like we had 200,000 in here and we had a year where we only spent 100,000 and all the consequence was that we couldn't use this to adjust a budget down. We couldn't play budgetary tricks with this account.
Right.
But the money that we didn't spend would still go back to the town. But it's,
The following year.
yeah,
For free cash, great. Right.
on anything else, yeah. So it'd be
If-
locked up until it went into free cash and got
If we
certified.
had a year where we only spent 90,000, they'd probably buy salt in case they need it next year. They'd fill up the salt shed prematurely so
Yeah.
that they'd have it for next year.
Like I said before, I think we're like just a few years away from never having to salt again. So I don't know. I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there. I just figured I'd throw it out because of the nuance with this particular account.
I do appreciate the fact that we're increasing very slightly to be better reflective of the actual expenditures. We're nowhere near the actual expenditures, but it better reflects the expenditures.
Makes it easier to cover the overages.
So there's no motion on the floor to change the amount that's been recommended. Do you want to? Okay. Any further discussion on this motion? No. All those in favor of 100,000 for winter snow and ice removal? Opposed? That's unanimous.
Any further discussion on the select board? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
All right, let's go to street lighting, 424-5400.
David?
Where did we go from here?
424-5400.
Thank you.
Would I like to make a motion? Mark's leaving, so somebody else is gonna have to.
This is a good one. I like this one.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes.
Yes.
I move to recommend the sum of $10,000 for street lighting, account number 424-5400.
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
All right. So, Chris, felt, he and Diane took a look at the numbers and felt that the 10,000 was probably a little more reflective of what we are spending or what we will be spending. You know, we own the lights now, so you have to take care of the maintenance of them, but it's just been so minimal that, they felt like we could go down to 10.
Could you give a brief explanation again? So is this just about fixing streetlights? It's nothing to do with the power or anything?
No, this is the electricity
It is the
also.
electricity.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. We do have solar credits being applied against the electric account for street lighting. And so we actually haven't been paying anything to Eversource for the last year, two, maybe. We're still paying the solar company, but Diane has been reducing the credits so that it'll eventually meet in the middle.
This is not a finance question, so you can cut me off, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, like, who decides where we put a streetlight in town? Like, what's the process for
But I,
people like petition, I want a streetlight outside my house? Or are there certain roads that are delineated as
Yeah.
remaining dark?
it can be, somebody can ask for one or they can ask for one to be removed.
Yeah.
I think that we had one over near when New Pro was in the works, there was some complaints about streetlights, and I think for the sewer plant, there's been complaints about lights, and so residential requests, or something gets built and the police need lights, for public safety reasons or whatever.
I believe approval is the select board based on public safety recommendation.
Yeah, I
Typically.
think that, sounds right. But this looks like, as I mentioned earlier, that the Energy Committee petitioned to get our lights changed. They got changed. It looks like from 2022 to 2023, the benefits started to kick in of having LEDs that don't burn out.
Yes.
But we have to replace them now, right?
Yeah, but I guess we must have been doing something similar back why we were paying 36,000, or unless that include electricity.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
that was just electricity.
So as they're getting older, we're gonna have to replace more, right?
Is this the electrical cost that you're saying?
Just, no, for the
This
light.
is everything for the streetlights.
Yeah.
I'm thinking for the light, as they're older, now we've had them 4 years, maybe we need to.
They,
replace
they,
them. So I'm wondering if this is enough.
well,
because of that.
the- Chris thinks so.
Hmm?
Chris thinks so. Chris Miller, Chris and Diane.
I basically know that residential use is not the same thing as industrial streetlight use, but I converted my house to all LED in 2015, and I haven't changed the light bulb since. So, you know, there will be a lot worse usage of stuff outside, but
That's different from telling us whether the lights have actually gone out.
yeah, that's true.
Any other discussion?
I have a question. Blake had to step away, so I think I'll just wait and vote when he gets back.
Monday.
Soon he'll get the chance to look at all the budget.
I hope so. It'd be nice to go over it with him.
And then we're also waiting Sal.
Right, right. I have his salary plugged in, but I think there's some discussion on Chris Miller moving forward and on the union contract. Obviously, that hasn't been decided on yet. So I have money plugged in there for certain things just in case. But I don't have anything definitive yet.
All right, let's go. So why don't you just leave your motion open?
Yep.
We'll move on, and then when Blake gets back.
Yep, that's what I was, perfect.
Okay, yep, 439-5400.
Move to recommend the sum of $63,500 for test well monitoring maintenance, account 439-5400.
Second.
So we spent about, I want to say 59,000 something this year. They must be working on the contract for fiscal 26 that Chris would put it at 63.5. I don't know for sure.
I'm going to make a motion for the select board to say motion.
Second.
50. Yeah, we need to vote this, street lighting. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye. Thank you, Madam Chair. All right. I'm making the same motion for this well monitoring 63.5.
Second.
Thank you.
The change last year, we had to drill some new test wells or something,
We
right?
did.
That was the change.
We just happened to have enough budgeted that it covered the additional cost.
What do we have? We contract somebody to do it, right?
Yes.
In the annual contract?
Mm-hmm.
Because through January, we spent 57,000.
Right.
Do we pay them up front for?
No, they do most of their work during the summer and into the fall. So
And
they're
Doesn't leave a whole lot of room for this fiscal year for the spring and
Well-
early summer.
so their work is done. So the next contract won't start till July 1st.
So it's not I don't know what test what they do, so.
I don't either, but, but it goes, it all happens at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Okay.
Aren't these mostly tracking like contamination from the old landfill?
Yes.
Yeah.
And there might be some, I don't know if the PFAS regulations have kicked in yet, but I'm sure that will have an impact on
Oh, that's
testing.
right. That was the additional cost. It
Right.
was for the PFAS testing. That's it. Yes. Oh, good catch.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
All right, we want to keep going for a little bit, right? Okay. So we're going to leave the Board of Health budgets for next week because Ned will be here to speak to them as well. So let's do 541-5400, which is just Council on Aging.
I move to recommend the sum of $100 for the Council on Aging.
Second.
Same motion for Select Board.
Second.
What's that? Yeah, nominal amount. It hasn't been in operation for several years. This just kind of keeps the account open in case we get a council of aging that does some additional work. Yeah.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye.
All right, if we go to 543-5400, that's the Veterans District Assessment.
Make a motion to approve Veterans District Assessment Account 543-5400 for $15,952.
Second.
Same motion for the Select Board.
Second.
So this is an assessment from the Upper Pioneer Valley Veterans District. So this is their cost to us for administering, doing the administrative work on the veterans payments.
They use a population-based formula?
I can't remember.
Or, you know what, that was too specific. I'm curious to know how they base their assessment.
Usually included in the book, but I don't have it behind here. So
Okay,
I don't know for sure without having and going and looking at it.
Brenda, could you repeat what the entity is that assesses us?
The Upper Pioneer Valley Veterans District.
And I know you probably, well, I'm not going to assume what you know and don't know. The following page, I think we have veteran residents who qualify for benefits. And
Correct.
the amount that we're being assessed and the amount, is there any relationship between these two accounts?
No,
So we're assessed. Do you know what this money goes? If only two
I
veterans.
think it's just for their operations to manage everything for us because they're the ones that give us the information as to who to pay and how much.
Mhm. Yeah, I was basically saying it's the same amount. And so is our assessment benefiting other communities? And is that part of the deal that we might have a lot of veterans in our community that get benefits?
We
But-
have just one currently.
Yeah, so I'm just curious.
Good, that's a good question. It's a
But-
good point.
Yeah.
Isn't the agent is usually here, I don't know, a couple times a month anyways. I've seen him here several times and he's there to outreach other veterans. And he's had a few come in and that sort of thing, but I know that they do have somebody that is actually working with the veterans.
Yeah, so
It's based on our equalized valuation.
okay, that explains it.
Yeah.
Helps.
You mean real estate valuation,
Correct.
assessed value?
Mhm.
Well,
So how could,
reduce the assessment of the value of my house, we won't have to pay as much.
yeah. So how could we find out, I mean, could we invite them in at some point to tell us what this goes for? Because, I mean, we're spending more for the Veterans District than on veterans.
Don't we have somebody that's appointed to that council or that committee? I thought I remembered seeing something that we have somebody that represents us.
I don't know, but I do know that, you know, they are handling they're handling everything for us. They determine the eligibility, they determine how much, they, I wish I knew more, but I don't.
Is this a state board or is it a organization of towns?
This is, it has quite a list of towns that are included.
But I mean, what is its statutory authority?
Statute requires that every municipality have a veterans agent, so
Okay.
I assume that this district covers that service for
Okay.
just a number of municipalities.
All right, thank you. That
Thank you. And Greenfield, when we pay the bill to Greenfield, so.
Any further discussion or questions? No, all those in favor?
I am in favor of voting for this, for the select board, but I just want to request that see if we can get some more information about what does this provide? I mean, it could be veterans outreach, could be the agent goes and sees veterans in town and, you know, finds out about their VA benefits, et cetera. So there's probably a very good reason why we do this, but I would like to just request that we get some information. So any further discussion from the select board? All's in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchey, aye. I don't know.
So having said that, who's
Who?
going to go get that information? Is that-
Christopher.
Christopher just.
Well,
It's probably me, but Brenda, can you just quote which number budget we're on? Because I lost my place, to be honest.
well, that's okay. It's 543-5400, but I think
Okay.
it fits for Sarah to check since she has the relationship with them. So if you're okay, I'll have Sarah do that.
I love that idea. That's great.
Okay, I still have the one question is that for some reason it sticks with me after last spring that there is somebody that's appointed that is part of that group, the council that handles this. So we have somebody from town that's on that committee. I just don't know who it
And
is.
I bet
I was
you
just
if-
checking the website. There's
Well,
nothing under that.
Nothing.
heading on
If you
the
look in
town.
your annual report, you might be able to see that.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that was one thing that, was it John Say or used to be involved in, I don't know if, yeah. Well, Sarah will tell us.
Well, the Veteran Services is on our government website and it has a person to contact, but I don't think he's the person from our town.
Where are you
Oh,
finding it?
Laura Thorne is an employee there.
Okay,
Yep.
that's our services. And the director is Christopher.
Okay.
Interestingly,
Alright,
it
let's
is
do
that
one more and then we'll finish up.
You
with
voted
that
it, right?
one.
Okay. Yeah, ADA coordinator, 549-5400. That'll end us at a good spot, I think.
To recommend the sum of $250 for ADA coordinator, account number 549-5400.
Second.
Same motion for the select board?
Second.
Discussion?
In the time that I've been here, we've never paid the ADA coordinator, so, we had this discussion last year too. So it just sits in here at $250.
And if I'm, isn't this one of those duties that Kevin Scarborough used to have that he never got compensated for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Way back. Yeah, but now I think Christopher is our ADA coordinator.
Okay.
And he'll probably demand that stipend.
Any discussion? Those in favor? Two, yeah.
Any further discussion from the select board? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Blake Gilmore, aye.
Tim Hilchi, aye.
About that little blip in 2020. Up 500 and back down. Spend.
We were feeling generous.
Yeah, I have no idea.
We just discussed.
You know, we did get an ADA grant not too long ago, and it could have been that we thought maybe that would be additional expenditures in relation to that.
We've got Frontier tomorrow, DES Wednesday. And then next week we'll be back to our regular time, Monday at 5:30.
Next Wednesday, or next Monday though,
Monday,
5
March
o'clock?
10th, 5:30.
5:30 next week?
Yep. Anybody else got anything we need to talk about? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Do we have a
Second.
All those in favor? It's unanimous.
Motion,
Next
I'll
week,
accept the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Well, we're adjourned. Thank you.